Hashem, today's daf yomi is Zevachim Tzadi Beis, Zevachim 92. We're going to start on Tzadi Beis Amid Aleph, 4 lines from the top. Amar Avuna Nesachim Shenitmu. Let's say you have Nesachim, the Shemen or the Yayin that became Tamei in the Beis Hamikdash. And here we have an example of, and on Hanukkah, they found all the oil was Tamei. So what do you have to do with that oil? Also, Hamaracha B'fnei Atzman. You have to make a fire on its own. And you have to burn them. Mishum shenemar, because it states Bakodesh ba'esh tisaref, that it says Bakodesh, it says in the pasuk, Chol chatas asher yuva midamel omawei lechaper Bakodesh, lo techel ba'esh tisaref. It says in the Kodesh, in the sanctuary, in the courtyard of the temple, ba'esh tisaref, it should be burnt with fire. And indeed, Tanyanami Hachi, we also learned in the Brayza, Adam Hashem ha'menachos v'nesachim also if you have all these things, the blood, the oil, the menachos, and the sachim that became tamei, you make for them a fire on their own sarfad. Where do you burn them? So here, Rashi says on the courtyard of the Azara, and you don't take them outside to burn them. The Rambam says you burn them on a different part of the Mizbeach. So Amoy Shmuel Rav Chana Bagdata. So Shmuel said to Rav Chana of Bagdata, Baghdad, Aisui Be'asar, bring me 10 men. Ve'emilcha Kamayun, and I'll say this halach in front of them. I want to publicize it. And Nitzachim Shenitlu, also and Maracha B'fnei Atzman and Sarfan. And if you have a Nitzachim that became Tamei, you make a fire on its own and you burn them on their own. Hadrino Al Kohatir. We'll return to you, Parak Kohatir. So now we come to the next chapter. The next chapter deals with achatos, the blood of the chatos. So there's a halacha that if there's blood of a carbon chatos that gets on a garment, that you have to wash it out. And this is based upon the fact that it says vasher yizeh midama ala beged. If anything will splatter from the garment from the blood of the chatos onto the garment, that was splattered on it, techabes b'makom kadosh. Boker tov. We're starting the 11th chapter of Zevachim, which is called Parak Dam Chatas. Instead, Tadi Beis Amid Aleph. So what's the reason for this halacha? So the Rashbam says that the reason is so you're not in violation of the time where you're allowed to eat the carbon, and then it'll become absorbed in the beged, and it'll be expired blood there. That's from the halacha of Nosar, and then you'd have to burn the garment. And the Ramban writes that the reason is because the Torah is strict that the blood of the chatas, it will be considered as though it's in the kli shares, and therefore you're not allowed to take it outside the courtyard. But the Rekanati gives a different explanation. Rekanati is the Italian Kabbalistic source in the Middle Ages, and I think it's late 13th century. He writes that chatas is coming to atone for a sin, and so therefore, and to appease the midas adin, and so therefore, whoever touches the carbon, he's going to get the tumah from the chatas, and so therefore, if you're touching the garment, you have to remove it from you because it represents the spiritual sin that's upon your garment. We also know that there's halacha that we learned that you're not allowed to wash the garment and reuse it, but this is presumably saying you have to get rid of the garment, even though you're not going to reuse it again. It's just for that garment, you can't leave it with you. So, okay. Dam chatas shanitas ala beged. So it says the Mishnah, if you have the blood of the chatas that was splattered onto a garment, harezet ton kibus, you have to wash it out. Aval pisheina kosim medaber el benachos. So let's just do a summary of the halacha review that there are three different types of. Actually, there are three main types of chatas. There's a chatas penimius, the chatas chitzona, and the chatas ophos. So the chatas ophos is a burn chatas. Then there's the chatas penimios. There are 5 types of sin offerings that are brought inside the sanctuary. Those are the power of the Kohen of Mashiach. if he made a mistake, the Paralam Davar, if the Sanhedrin made a mistake, the bull of Yom Kippur, the goat of Yom Kippur, and the goat of idolatry that each tribe would have to bring. All the other chatos are brought in the courtyard and are eaten. The chatos panimios are not eaten. Chatos panimis are not eaten, or panimios are not eaten. So the chatos, the blood of the chatos and the splatter on the garment, that requires kibus, even though the pasuk says the Mishnah is referring to the chatos that are eaten, because it says b'makom kadosh teachel. It says I'll read the pasuk kohen mechatel yochlanam b'makom kadosh. The kohen who uses it should eat in the holy place b'chatzar al moed. So that's and then it says kol asher yigab b'sara yikdash v'asher yizeh midama abeged asher yizeh aleh techabetz makom kadosh. So you have to wash the garment, and we're talking about the chatos that are eaten. So, still, even though that the pasuk is only referring to chatos that are in the echad pnimios, so it says afpi she'en chazman davar alba nacholos echad hanacholos ve'echad pnimios teunos kibus. So our Mishnah says both types of chatos, even the ones that are in or the ones that are inside the sanctuary that are not in, they all require the washing of the garments. As it says Torah sachatas, Torah achas l'kol chatos, one law for all of the chatos, and so therefore you wash both of those garments. Chatos pesula, but let's say there's a chatos that's disqualified, ein damato kibus, then you don't have to wash its blood. Bein shaisel shasa kosher, bein shalasai shasa kosher, whether or not the chatos ever had a moment where it was permitted. Ezu hi shaisel shasa kosher. What's the moment of the chatos that has this shasa kosher? Shalana, if the meat became expired or the blood was left overnight, or shenitma, or the meat became tamei, v'shiyatza, or she went outside the courtyard. Ezu shaloisa lashakosher. What's the example of chatas? Never had a shas kosher. Sheneshchata chutz l'zmana, chutz l'mekoma, if it was slaughtered within proper thought, beyond the proper time, beyond the proper place. V'shekiblu psulim v'zarku them. Or if those who are disqualified receive the blood. So now we go back to our Mishnah. That what did our Mishnah say? It says the Gemara. The Mishnah said that dam chatas, whether it's the panimios or the chatas achitzonos or the outer chatos, all of them require the washing of the garments, the chatas achitzona and the chatas panimios. So because it says Torah achas, the Torah achas chol chatos, so says the Gemara. What is our question? If there's one law for all chatos, I feel chatos of nami. So then, if the blood splatters on you, you should also require to wash the garments. But why does the Brisa say kibus? I might think that the blood of the chatas requires kibus. Tamomar zos. So the pasuk says that zos Torah chatos. That it's to limit it. And what does the word zos mean? Tamomar zos. To tell us that the blood of the chatos does not require kibus. Amar shalkish mishum bar kapar amar. But the pasuk says, "Zos Torah's chatas b'makom asher tishachet hawa tishachet chatas." So that's the pasuk in the context of the washing the garments, which teaches us. So the Brisa says Zos. Reish Lakish says the name Bar Kapar. The pasuk says tishachet, which means that. So Reish Lakish says, no, it's only referring to those animals. So basically, let me just say the Mahalach of the Gemara again. Gemara says, why does the blood of the oaf not included? So if you want to learn out from Torah, from the word Zos Torah Sachata, so if you want to learn out from the fact that it says, for the fact that it says Torah Sachatas, those Torah Sachatas, that includes all the chatos, and it should even include the oaf. So why does the Brisa say that it doesn't, that the dam of the oaf is not included? So Reish Lakish says the reason why the blood of the oaf is not included is because it says in that pasuk all the animals that are slaughtered. It's only referring to those animals that are slaughtered, but not the animals that are Malika, and oaf is not slaughtered, it's killed through Malika. So Gemara says, Ve'ema b'nei acholos hakasim medaber. Maybe when it says Torahs, it's referring not to the animals, not to the panemios, but to the ophos, because it's eaten. It says in that pasuk, in the place where it is holy, you shall eat it. Makom kadosh teachel, and the chatas panemios is not eaten. Maybe it's referring to the ophos of a panemios low. So the Gemara says, no, we know it's not referring. We know that the panemios applies because Rabbi Rahman Torah. It says this is the law. So the Gemara says, feel chatas haof nami. So maybe the chatas haof should also, this law should apply because of the fact that Torah included the word Torahs. No, mi rachmana zos. No, the Torah limits the word zos. So it says the chatas haof, you don't have to clean out the garment. Umara isa, why are you saying that it includes panemios, chatas panemios, and excludes the chatas haof? Mistabra the chatas behema panemios havle rebulia. It's more logical to assume that the chatas behema panemios that should be the one included because we have all these common laws. Shekem behema, they're both referring to an animal. Shlita safon, both of them are slaughtered in the northern part of the courtyard, whereas where the oaf does not even have any shlita at all. And also it's a Kabbalah. Both of them are the Kabbalah. Both of them have to receive in the utensil, Vikaran, and both the Damach Chatas Panemius, the Kohen puts on the four corners of the altar, like Damach Itzona. That's also put on the four corners of the altar. And Etzba, both of them, the blood is applied with their finger. And also Chuda, the place where you put the blood on the corners of the Mizbeach is on the corner of the Karen, the horn, and that's also like the Chatas Chitzona. Those is pointing out it's not exactly precise because earlier back on Daf Nun Gimel we said that the Tana who says that you have to put the blood on the corner of the altar doesn't require you to put it on the Karen. If you remember, it wasn't 100%, but they're both in that area. Why are you asking?
Well, pasuk starts off by saying,
which pasuk? Right. The chatas is not. The chatas is not slaughtered inside; it's slaughtered in the northern part of the courtyard. So it's yeah, but I'm trying to think there. The in Yom Kippur we combine the I think on Yom Kippur we combine the with the chatas. We have to check. We combine the with the chatas, I believe, but we have to. Don't hold me to that. Let's check that. So and also the ishim, they're both burnt on the fire. The parts of the inner chatas go up on the altar. The inner parts go up on the outer altar, and also the chatas chitzona goes up on the outer altar. So, but the chatas oaf is not an animal. It's killed with malika, and it's not required to be slaughtered in the north and to receive its blood in a kli and to put it on the corners of the altars, and also all of the meat of the chatas oaf is eaten by the kohanim. Other Rabbi Gemara says on top of Tzadi Beis and Beis chatas oaf habalei rebli. No, we should include the chatas oaf shekein chutz kamosa. It's done the blood service is done outside of the sanctuary. It's eaten, unlike the chatas panemius. Gemara says still hanach lefishin. There's more commonalities with the panemius. Rav Yosef says a different answer of why we're excluding chatas oaf. Amakra yochalena. It says in the pasuk hakohen mechatelsa yochalena b'makom kadosh. The kohen who applies its blood should eat it in the holy place. Teachel b'chatzar ol moed. To tell us. So from the fact that it says Yochalena and doesn't say Yeyachel implies lo zuv lo acheres. This chata should be in v'ne'acholos mi'er hakasav, And the pasuk is teaching us that one of the ones that are eaten is being excluded, and so therefore it's excluding the chatasof. If that's the case, elazos slamali. So why do we need the word zos if we're excluding the chatasof from Yochalena? Yilav zos havamina Yochalena orcha dekra. If it weren't for zos, I wouldn't know what Yochalena meant. I would have just said it's just orcha dekra. So zos is telling us to exclude something. What are we excluding? We're excluding the chatasof. Kamashman. Rabbah comes along and Rabbah says that just the opposite. He says just the opposite. He says, what's the pasuk referring to? Rabbah says the pasuk is referring to the pasuk that we thought was referring to the chatzas chitzona is actually referring to the chatzas penimius. That's what the pasuk says. You have to wash the garments. Rabbah says, Amar kar asher yazev asher asher yizeh alot the chabes from hazos hakosim medaber. It implies that the chatos that pasuk is referring to that's a chatas that you have to sprinkle the blood, meaning to say a chatas penimios, because it says you have to sprinkle the blood 7 times before Hashem. But the chatas chitzonios, there is no sprinkling of the blood, because there the Kohen applies it directly to the corners of the horn or the corners of the altar. So therefore, the pasuk itself is referring to the chatas penimios. And that's the origin of the discussion, not the chatas chitzonios. The Gemara says, "V'atanan, didn't we learn in our Mishnah? Afal pisha ena kasam medaber el b'ne'acholos." Don't we see that our Mishnah is not like that? How can Rabbah go against our Mishnah? Our Mishnah says explicitly that pasuk is referring to the chatos that are in. No, that's linyan mariko v'shtifa. That's the halacha that if it got into a copper utensil, you have to wash it out, or else the chatos will be expired meat in there. Avoinyan kibus, but with respect to washing the garments, asher yizex, if that refers to the chates chitzonios. If that's the case, why does it say in our Mishnah, echad ha nechos ve'echad ha pnimius? The nechos are the chates chitzonios. It implies that the outer ones applies to that, and also to the inner ones. It should be the opposite. Echad ha pnimius ve'echad ha nechos v'balei. The first source is the inner courtyard, and then the outer courtyard. So yeah, change the text. Well, if that's the case, so if that's the case, the chatasov should also be the one which you should have to wash the blood. The main source was the chatas penimius, so it should apply both the chatas chitzonios and chatas chitzona, and also the chatas ha'of. Mia Rachmana. No, the Torah limits it because it says Zos. Also, the Chitzona should also be limited. No, Riba Rachmana Torah. No, the Torah says the word Torah to include the Chitzona. Umarai. So why are you including the Chatas Chitzona and excluding the Chatas Of? Mistabra Chatas Behema. You should logical to include the Chatas Chitzona. Shekain Behema. They're both animals. Shlitas with Safon. They're both slaughtered in the north. Kabolas Kli. They're both received in a utensil. Karen. They're both the blood of the chitzona is blood on the 4 corners of the horns, and also the chatas penimius is like that. That's what's applied with the finger, which is like the penimius. He throws it with its finger. And chuda, and it's put on the corners of the altar, uveishim, and then parts of it are burned. It's thrown, the blood is thrown or sprinkled like the panemius, and also, so the Gemara says no, hanach lefishin. The chatas chitzon has more commonalities with the chatas panemius. By Rabbi Abin, so now we go into like a little bit of a tangent since we start talking about the chatas of. Chatas of shehichnis dama betzavara. So we know that the Torah tells us that if you receive the blood in a klisharis, and then you take the blood into the sanctuary when it's not supposed to go in there, then the blood becomes disqualified. We learned this halach already. So what about if you there's no blood that you're supposed to collect from the chatas ha'of, from the bird, but let's say it's collected in the neck. So let's say you take the blood in the neck of the oaf and you bring it to the sanctuary. What's the halacha? Tzavar kli sharis dami and mifsal. Do we say the neck is like the kli sharis and therefore it's disqualified? Udoma kitzavar be'ema, or do we say it's like the neck of the animal, and so therefore it's not going to be disqualified? Only if you take the blood alone, but not in the flesh. Tashma. So the Gemara gives an attempt to answer this question. Pirchasa. The pirchasa is the death rattle that the bird goes, or the animal or a bird goes through after you slaughter it. So let's say it goes through its death rattle. It's chicken running without its head. Here it's a bird, and it enters into the courtyard, into the sanctuary, and then it goes out. Kshera, then it will be kosher. So doesn't that imply if the Kohen brought it in, it will be psula? So if he brought it in, it will be disqualified. So that should answer our question. So Gemara says, according to your logic, by the case of the karbanos of like the asham, the chatas, or the ola, which are supposed to be slaughtered in the north, where it states that if the animal went through a death rattle and it went to the southern part of the courtyard and then returned to kshera, would you think to imply that if he took it to the southern part, it will be disqualified? You can't say that. There's no prohibition to take the blood of the animal to the southern part of the azara. It's trichole. So what's the reason why it's telling us? To tell us that if he took it outside, it's disqualified. That if he took it outside the courtyard, then it would be disqualified, but not if he took it in while it's attached to the neck. By Rabbi Abin, Nishbach al haritzba v'aspa mahu. Let's say the blood v'aspa mahu. Let's say the blood sprinkled on the floor of the courtyard, and then he gathered it up. So we know here, what's the question? That can you still sprinkle this blood on the altar? By an animal, the law is that if the blood spills from the neck onto the floor of the courtyard without first receiving a utensil, it becomes disqualified. But if he received it in a utensil and only afterwards did it spill, then the Kohen could gather up and sprinkle, because it was already gathered in a utensil. So now, what about if the blood of the bird spilled on the floor? The Torah tells us that the bird does not require klisharis because the neck is itself the klisharis. Hilkach osafa ovekosher. Therefore, he can collect it up. It'll be kosher because it was received in the klisharis. So Dilma mifsal pasal beirachmana klisharis. Or else the Torah says that the blood is disqualified if it was received in the klisharis. You have to throw it straight from the neck to the altar, and so for sure, if it spills on the floor, it's disqualified. Hilkach osafo pasal. So therefore, if you gather up, it is disqualified. So how do we say here? Amarava tashma yachol yedam chatas ovta and kibbutz. So let's go back to our teaching. I might think the blood of the bird requires washing. Tamalomer dos. It's excluded. Visa g'daitach mifsal pasal beirachmana. If you want to say that it becomes disqualified if it was received in a klisharis, if that's the case, for sure, if it was received on a garment. For sure, if it was received on a garment, it should be disqualified. And so therefore, typically, we should anyway know it's disqualified because it was disqualified, and so therefore the blood of disqualified blood does not require kibbutz. So therefore, if it falls onto the garments, it's in a utensil, and for sure it doesn't require kibbutz at that point. So that proves that if it falls on something else, it's not disqualified. I'm Rav Huna Brei Rav Yeshua. No, we're talking about a case, but Malda Klibet Savara, where the garment was attached to the neck of the animal, and so therefore it was still in the neck. Okay, so that's today's daf. We're going to stop here so we could go upstairs and daven now. Baruch Hashem.